Hey guys, I'm Ian McMinn and this is Path to Who I Am. It has been a minute. Sometimes I take creative breaks in the channel. If you can see, I have a couple videos I've just put up recently that I had actually recorded back a month ago because I love to stay a few videos ahead normally. But yeah, picking it up after several weeks off. Sometimes that's just how things play out, but hopefully this finds you well today. Today, I want to talk about trusting your inner guidance. So, a really big thing that I like to train in clients, and eventually, as I've stated, I'm planning retreats. So, for retreat attendees as well, is this idea of starting more and more to trust our inner guidance. So, the common way that a lot of people get brought up in life is to not trust their inner guidance, but to trust their logical mind, or we could call it our ego. Now, the ego is a very loaded term. I want to be clear. I am not against the ego, I think it's fantastic. But in trusting inner guidance, I want to talk about this idea of who we put in charge. So, as I've mentioned before, what happens when we put our ego in charge, as we get taught often, not everyone gets taught this, but a lot of people do implicitly as well, is to put our ego in charge, to put our logical mind in charge for our decisions. And this can keep us alive, right? It can accomplish the bare minimum. I want to be clear. So there's nothing wrong with surviving, right? But if we're talking about thriving and not just surviving, the problem with putting the ego in charge is it turns it into the negative ego. So whenever you notice yourself, and I notice this in myself all the time, the tendency to want to control things, to want to force, to want to cram things into place. If I could just get XYZ, things will work out. That is actually a symptom of my ego being the one in charge. So, what do we do with this? The ego is meant to be an assistant. Our logical mind is meant to be our assistant. For example, I know that stoves are hot. I know that the stove is on. I should probably turn the stove off when I leave the room, right? So that's a very simple thing. That's a very simple thing to know. If I have a meeting at 8 o'clock and it's 20 minutes to get to the meeting place, I will need to leave by 7:30 to account for any additional traffic, right? So by putting the ego back as the assistant, it goes from being a negative ego to the positive ego. So now what do? Well, trusting inner guidance. We can place our intuition, our deeper sense, as the guide. So whenever I notice resistance coming up, one thing I can do is I can remind it, hey, we have someone that's actually really meant for this position, that's going to take care of us well, and you get to be in the position that you're best for, which is as the assistant. So you can actually get yourself to relax by talking to your ego as though it's a person, if you like. But so for trusting your inner guidance, what do? Well, the way that we can start to play with it is we can think of it in a few different ways. What is calling to me in the deepest way right now? What speaks to me most? Some people are very auditory. So this idea of what of all the things that are coming up that I could be doing right now, what calls to me most, or what is speaking to me most? Or for someone that's more feeling centric, what is the full body activation that calls to me right now? Whatever simple task of the tasks I have, right? Um, whatever, what is my deepest knowing about what's next? So for people that are more cerebral or like to come from this level, this idea of knowing, what does my deepest knowing tell me is next to do in the list of items I could be doing right now? And so trusting my inner guidance, I can start to take action moment to moment on what's calling to me, or what my knowing is telling me, or what I know is next, or what I feel in the deepest way to be the next step. And so this is a way of revealing to yourself who you really are, because our actions in this world that we live in, our actions show people who we are, and most importantly, show ourselves. So by giving myself permission to trust my inner guidance, I start being myself in the form of the actions that I am taking. And so when I trust my inner guidance, those are the actions that I take. Someone might say, "Well, Ian, I'm afraid. I don't think I'm going to support myself if I start letting my actions, follow this procedure." Well, I would say to that person, I would ask them if they really want to live in a new way or not. One, and let's say that they do, which is great. Then I can continue giving advice to that person. I would say, in every moment that you can, follow your inner guidance. If you work at the slave driving job that you hate and you feel you need to do that to meet the bare minimum, there's nothing wrong with that. Follow your inner guidance within that framework. And the idea is eventually you will get led to a better position, or you may even be in the same job and it just becomes a better environment. There's people that experience that all the time. But the idea is you can start trusting your inner guidance in every moment that you can, in every moment that you feel comfortable and able. Eventually, with the idea that if you do this long enough, the circumstances in your life will adapt to allow you to do this 100% of the time, to allow you to be yourself 100% of the time. Paradoxically, circumstances will change. So if you do have the bad job, circumstances will change once you're totally at peace with the job not being great. That's normally when they start to change. So you can just pay attention to that as well. But learning to trust my inner guidance. If I don't do that, well, it's okay. I just won't be me. And I just won't find out who I am. And I won't necessarily be fulfilled. Or I'll be somewhat fulfilled, but I won't be as fulfilled as I could be. And I won't follow my true life path, which is the most exciting, fun-filled, and challenging life that I could live specific to me, right? So in previous videos, in my early videos, the ones that have the most views, I talk about I am awareness. Well, coming from this I am awareness moment to moment, what is it going to do? It's going to allow me to start trusting my inner guidance and taking those actions moment to moment in the way that I've detailed, from what's calling to me most, what's speaking to me most, what my knowing is telling me, what I know is the next step, what I feel in the core of my being is the next thing to do. When I come from that I am awareness, the same thing is accomplished. So this is just another way to achieve this. I can come from I am awareness, where everything is accomplished and every action I take is an expression of that fulfillment, of me already being fulfilled. So it's a very positive way to take action. Most people, or at least a lot of people, some people, take action from a place of I am not where I want to be and I want to get there. And if that works for them, that's great. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. For me, that is that. For good luck or not, I'm not sure, that mentality always led me to disaster. It led me to have terrible injuries. It led me to burnout. It led me to depression. It led me to anxiety. So ultimately, I was meant for a different way. So this is why I teach this stuff now, and why I want to do retreats, is this is the way that I got to be functional as a person. So there's nothing wrong with doing things in a different way. David Goggins has a very different philosophy from me, but I don't have a problem with him being himself, right? I mean, if it works for you, it works for you. I am talking about what has worked for me and what is currently working and what will probably continue to work for me. So, at the end of the day, guys, test this stuff out. Listen to this video a few times. Let it sink in, even if you're on the treadmill and you're not really paying attention. This stuff can sink in subconsciously, right? And just try it out and see where it goes. And if after 30 days it doesn't work, throw it out. Or, you can do a session with me or whatever. But test things out and see what works in your experience. Because your experience is the be all end all. It is the beginning, middle, and end of how you get to lead your life. I would claim this is how stuff really works, but that's just because it's in my experience. Maybe things work totally differently for you, right? So you can try something else if that's the case. But it's always worth a shot, right? If you got all the way to the end of an 11-minute video of me blabbing at you, this may be something that could help. So anyway, guys, I'm Ian McMinn. This is Path to I Am. I hope you've enjoyed it today. I certainly did. I'm excited to do more in the future. Get back on the wagon. And I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks.